My name is Ryan O'Toole, 29 years old, live in San Francisco, California. Yes, I voted. It was important for me to vote because this is the first election I ever voted in. I was eligible the last two elections, was planning to vote for the Green Party, but didn't because apparently I had better shit to do that day. I also think I wasn't registered. I felt fascinated waking up the day after the election. For the first time in my life, an anti-established candidate had won. And that was exciting, although I thought the candidate was a total moron, a totally impulsive moron. Today is 12/21/16. One word to describe how I feel regarding the state of politics in America is apprehension. I get most of my political information from NPR, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. I trust NPR the most out of these three, but I still take it with a grain of salt. I don't fully trust pretty much any news source. I always question what their agenda is. My feelings have changed since Donald Trump took office. I wasn't very worried when he took office, but now that he took office, given his stance on the environment, who he elected to the EPA, I am very concerned and pretty pissed. Also his conflicts of interest are ridiculous, as well as the wealth of his cabinet picks and their conflicts of interest. The most important issue to me this election was the environment. An avid environmentalist. I spend lots of my time cleaning recyclables, scrubbing little ramekins, plastic ramekins. And I think given the current state with climate change, pollution, plastics in the ocean, the environment is probably the thing that our country should be most concerned about and something that we should unite on. And I also think misinformation is a huge problem with this because so many people think that environmentalism and profitability are inversely related, which is not the case, especially as evidenced by California being the sixth largest economy in the country and growing at a very fast rate, even though they have the strictest regulations in the United States. My day-to-day life has not been significantly impacted since the election. I'll feel dejected the morning Trump takes office, but I'll also feel highly motivated to be more politically active in the here and now, but also in the future. I had been very politically active in the past. I had done Occupy for several months, was camped out, was doing part of their direct action group, and it was really rewarding. I met a lot of people, learned a lot, felt like I made a difference, but it was also very draining. It's a lot of work, and it's also just a lot of sitting around and listening to other people talk and trying to work with others, which is not easy. Especially even that is all these people who you would think agree on almost everything, and then it's fucking some people would just be ridiculously just ridiculous, so ultra liberal, left, that you're just I don't even know how to communicate with you right now. So it's a lot. It's really, really difficult, but I think it's really important for the future of our country for me to be more politically active. I will also feel excited about lower taxes, and I'll also feel excited about my Second Amendment rights being expanded. I think we should listen to the wisdom of our forefathers. There's a reason they put the right to bear arms in the Constitution. It serves as a deterrent against government tyranny. Although I fully support increased background checks, more gun safety instructions, and I also think education. I support universal education, free colleges, free education on every level, and I think that will drastically reduce gun violence as well. Because I think the majority of, the majority of like gun violence and stuff probably happens because people are ignorant and misinformed and not educated and haven't like, yeah, they're just these ignorant people who've never like stepped outside of their town and or never read a book. One piece of advice I give Trump is you can still have clean energy and profitability. I had talked earlier about California and how they have thrived under the strictest regulations in the U.S. And I think America, even though the growth might not be immediate, I think putting lots of money into like research and development to sustainable clean energy as well as just sustainable environmental policy in general will pay off in the long run. And yeah, I think it's very, very important. Also, like think about the animals. You know, like I was watching this Facebook video with a polar bear, and he was petting a dog, and it was like super cute. But you realize kind of like how these are animals, or even though they're like don't have disposable thumbs and can't, you know, do taxes or reason and stuff, it doesn't mean they don't feel things like we feel things. And like just thinking about how polar bears, like it's not going to be something I can show like my granddaughter anymore because they're going to be gone. It's like really fucking sad. And thinking about like what it's like to be a polar bear, and all of a sudden like your whole like home, your whole way of life is just like interrupted, and just thinking about the discomfort of like having to go somewhere warmer, having all that skin, like it's fucking horrible. And then I was watching another video on through Facebook, and it was like this fish, and it had like a straw up in its nose, you know, like imagine like, I can stick my finger up my nose. Imagine like a straw like lodged up in here, and like it'd be one thing if you're a human and it happens and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to the doctor, it's like 30 minutes away, the straw will be out in 40 minutes. Like you don't even know what the fuck a straw is, and you have it lodged up there, and you don't know if it's ever coming out. And like, just imagine, you know, and just like the suffering that we cause because like our environmental policies are like drastically inadequate. I think the government, I'm all about shrinking the government down in most ways. I think the federal government's overreaching, and I think they're way bigger than they need to be. But I think the Environmental Protection Agency is something that should be expanded, and should also like encompass more than just like clean energy and stuff. It should also encompass like plastics and straws, pollution. There should be like, you know, way stricter penalties for companies who just dump their waste. And there's one other thing. Oh yeah, and then yeah, just even like there's this bull too with like 20 pounds of plastic in his stomach, and they're like pulling out plastic bags, and it's just fucking horrible. I think about like this little munchkin. He's my dog, and like I love him more than anything in the world. And I just think about like him a lot too with all this. Like sometimes it's hard to relate to you know, something you've never seen or whatnot, but I just think about like how emotionally intelligent he is, and like imagine he had a straw up his fucking nose. I'd be flipping the fuck out, you know? Although like that's something, you know, Donald Trump, like imagine your daughter had a straw up her nose and she wasn't gonna get it out, you know? Like think about this shit, you know? One piece of advice I just did that. It's important for me to participate in this documentary because I care deeply about the environment in our country, people. Yeah, given current state of America right now, it's deeply troubling, and I feel my voice needs to be heard. I recently went to Standing Rock, and one of the companies that's a major player in the Dakota pipeline had covered up a oil spill in the Kalamazoo River, that area in Michigan, several years ago. There's a whistleblower who called them out 3 years after the fact. They had to go back, do like a $600 million cleanup. I talked to him firsthand, actually. He told me he had like death threats against his life, told me his brakes got caught on his bike. Yeah, it's pretty, and then you have protesters who are there trying to save the environment, trying to ensure Native Americans are given the right rights after they've been systematically oppressed by the federal government for like their entire existence, and then you have basically private security being backed by the National Guard, being backed by the North Dakota Police, and these security guards are shooting citizens with rubber bullets, spraying them with water cannons in the freezing cold, pretty much instigating things. Yeah, and from what I've heard firsthand, I didn't experience this, so take it with a grain of salt, but heard they're headhunting, it's purposely shooting people in the head, purposely shooting people in the grinds, purposely shooting women. They're also messing with people's cell phones so that you can't take videos at these protests, kind of like scrambling things. People are saying their cell phones have just been turning like off. I've heard that from several sources who were there. I also heard, what was the other thing? Cell phones. Oh, they also plant, what the fuck they call it? Like instigators, or basically they like plant people in the camp to go to protests and then do violent shit to give the protests the bad name. I was told about one guy who had been there a month and brought out a gun and started firing it, and they chased him down, and then they searched his car after, and he had basically like stuff from the oil companies, or there's some link between him and the oil companies, and they realized that he was like I think they call them agitators is what they call them. So it's really troubling. Big money. Yeah, so to sum it up, I think Bernie Sanders had it right with a lot of things. I think getting corporate influence out of politics is really, really important. Not saying that business can't have a say, but the degree to which they do and the degree to which lobbyists play into all this is deeply troubling. I also feel that free education is like really important. Not only will it stimulate economic growth, it will also like educate citizens, and I think that will lessen the divide between races, cultures, sexual orientations, etc. Because people will just be more educated and critically think and get outside their box. I think a huge problem we have is we can't relate to each other. A lot of these small towns, like I've driven across the country several times, small towns in like Iowa, Nebraska, Montana, they've never been out of their state, or they've never been to big cities, or they've never been to different countries. So it's like they just, this other, that's like what people are. So I think it's really important for people to kind of get educated. That's why I think like the anti-immigrant fever, the anti-Muslim fever, all that stuff is so pronounced because the lack of education. But it's also not in the interest of big corporations or people who want to remain in power to give us education. But just to sum it up, I think that one second. Where the fuck am I? Education. Critical thinking. Fuck. Oh, I think Trump winning is a good thing, just in the sense of it's gonna bring together all the disenfranchised groups. It's gonna help us find our commonalities. It's gonna motivate us to be more politically active, and I definitely see an optimistic future. Maybe not for the next 4 years, but far on. It's gonna be a lot of hard work. It's gonna suck, kind of, but it's really rewarding. So I still do remain optimistic. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I regret it, definitely. I would have voted Green Party, but at the time I just thought Donald Trump was such an idiot and so impulsive that voting for the lesser of two evils seemed to make sense in this occasion. But as someone who did their bachelor's in philosophy, I think the lesser of two evils argument is a slippery slope. So I should have trusted my instincts and just voted Green Party. O'Toole out.